let me try to define two things. And I don't know if we've ever talked about the idea of moral suasion versus threats of violence. So it's an important concept in legal dealings. Moral suasion is when someone tries to use moral arguments in order to persuade you, to inspire you to do something. It's not a threat of violence, but it might be pointing out negative connotations. It's not offering you a cookie necessarily, but it is making moral points in order to guide you. Moral persuasion, if you want, but moral suasion. Honeyed words, talking about what's right and wrong and senses of justice and duty and whatever else. This would all be moral suasion. Now, the judge is completely within okay territory to use moral suasion to get you to shoot yourself in the foot if he wants. It's a little bit underhanded, but it's difficult for you to then come back and say, oh man, he persuaded me to do something against my best interests, and now I hate that. And that was wrong. It's not wrong to morally persuade somebody of things. It might show a bias, which is a separate wrongness, but in itself, it's not wrong. Now, the difference where they're wanting to push that line is moral suasion goes up to a point, and as soon as you're alluding to a threat of violence, you're stepping over that line, and there's some gray area there. You know, if someone comes up to you and says, hey, the world will be a better place if you give me $1 million. And if he says, and by the way, your wife and kid will be a lot better off if you do too. We're starting to get into a threat territory, right? So it's about moral suasion and clarifying that moral suasion isn't what's in practice here, that it's threats of violence that are at play here. Coercion can be either one. You can be coerced by moral suasion. God will hate you if you do this, is moral suasion. How do I define that line, though? I mean, I hope I've made clear kind of that transition. So, moral suasion to get a not guilty or guilty plea out of you, quite all right. But implying a baculum, a consequence that isn't just a moral consequence, but rather a punishment consequence without regard to right or wrong. Now, if you say, you know, hey, if you hurt this person, they'll hurt you back, that's not a threat of violence. That's just a rightful retaliation or redress. So threatening somebody with an ethically okay consequence is different. So they play that game a lot on the warrant issue. If you don't come in, hey, it's not violence. I'm just going to write out a warrant for your arrest. And they're looking at it as, well, this is just a normal and ethical consequence to your action. So it's not a threat of violence. It's not a threat of violating the rights that you would have. It is a threat of a rightful consequence. So it's our job to start driving that difference because they're trying to protect themselves under the umbrella of moral suasion when really they're issuing a threat of violence. So let's talk in those terms about what led up to you pleading not guilty. Was it moral suasion or was it gray area? Was it something he was trying to communicate a moral suasion and stay on that side of the pool, but you understood it as a threat of violence, or what?
He called my name. I stepped up to the podium. He asked me to raise my right hand, swore me in. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. So help me, whatever. Then he said, all right, you've been charged here with, how do you plead? Your Honor, there is something on this. No. I just need a plea. Not guilty. And all right, I will have this. Do you want a bench trial, jury trial? I guess jury trial. All right, jury docket it is. Here we go. All right, you are free to go. The information will be mailed to you. Bailiff, make sure that his address is correct. Have him verify. Is this your address? That is my address. All right, the information will be mailed to you. Okay, thank you. I guess it was based off solely of ignorance of my options. I didn't know I had any of this.
So let's explore your thinking a little bit. Why were you there?
Because I was given a citation with a date on it that said, if you do not show or you do not handle your ticket by this date, a bench warrant will be issued.
So my point is that a threat is leveraged into a further threat is leveraged into a further threat. So let's be cognizant of the threats, because let's be aware of them, because we tend to gloss over them as if we showed up at court just out of some sense of moral duty. seeking absolution. We were trying to find Jesus or whatever the hell. You didn't feel the ability to contradict this person, right?
Correct.
Because when he said, no, I need you, blah, 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 you interpreted that as a limitation of your options under the threat of pain to you. Or did you just feel that he had a good argument?
I felt that I had no right at that time to speak, and that I will be given the right at a later time following their instruction.
So at the time, you would have misused the word right. But the feeling that you had, would you call it, you felt that it would have been unethical for you to speak? Is that truly what you mean? Or that you wouldn't be, or that it wouldn't be tolerated? You wouldn't be given that privilege? Or that privilege would be withheld and you would be punished for not doing so?
I felt that I had something that I was curious on, that I had objections to, and I tried to speak up, got shut down quickly, and I interpreted that as this is not the time and place for that. You'll have the specific right later.
Ethical-wise or safety-wise or what?
I guess just procedural-wise, the way that it happens in court, I didn't want to violate anything. I didn't want to violate any rules of the court.
Why did you not want to violate what you were guessing at were the rules of court?
Because they already had me there on 2 different citations, and I didn't want to inquire any more damages.
Okay, I think you answered me. Let me make sure. What do you mean by you didn't want to be damaged, I guess, if that's what you meant?
I'm already risking having this amount of money having to be paid without any right to help of my own. So I did my best to speak up and was shot down.
Okay. So what were you worried about happening if you had insisted upon an answer that you wanted?
I've seen bad things happen when you don't follow law.
Don't be coy. I'm trying to get you to stop being coy.
Okay, stop being coy. More penalties, more fines, possible threat of jail, pissing the system off, and they're bringing the full hammer down on me.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay.
That's what I was fearful.
I knew that, of course, from the beginning. I was trying to get you to stop being coy about it. Well,
I guess that's the easiest way. Yeah. So yeah, the full hammer from the force saying, "Oh, I spoke up, trying to question. Now you're screwed."
You believe that they had the right, ethically, to bring down the full hammer on you over the issue that you're accused of.
That is my full belief because I don't know.
Full stop. New paragraph. Okay. You've satisfied my earlier question. New line of questioning entirely. Or did you believe at the time that it would have been ethically right for the court to bring down the full hammer of your fears? Everything you feared might happen. Do you believe that they would have been in the right to do so to you, and that you actually owed that punishment to them?
I believe whether or not they had the right to actually do it, if I stepped out of line, they would have done it anyway and gotten away with it.
Okay. Is my question troubling? So at the time that you were fearing this doom, did you believe that you were rightly owed that doom, like ethically, not just legally, but ethically, like as a debt to God or whatever, right?
No.
That they would have been the right ethically to have lowered that boom on you.
No, ethically, no right. I did nothing wrong. I believe that they would not have that right. No.
Great. Okay, that's great. So your fear was that ethics were not a factor, justice be damned, right? That they would punish you without regard to right and wrong, correct?
Yes.
Boom.
That is
Thank
correct.
you.
Based off of ethic, no, I do not believe that ethically they had the right to go ahead and do that, nor did I deserve it on an ethical level. But the fact that they were going to do it regardless of the fact is...
Without regard to right and wrong and truth and falsity, that they would punish you for questioning them.
Absolutely correct.
You felt, rightly probably so, that without regard to right and wrong, and without regard to truth and lie, truth and falseness, that you would be punished for any action that continued to try to clarify the cause and nature of the proceeding. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. If that is true, then you can stand upon that, and you can argue against it. So it's not that you felt that you owed a plea of not guilty. And it's also not that you felt that it was in the interest of ethics. And it's not that you felt that it was in the interest of truth. And it's not that you felt that it was in the interest of your own defense. It was merely in the interest of avoiding the threat of a punishment that you feared, rightly, and still do fear, probably.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
That would be handed to you without regard to justice, truth, due process, or any such thing, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So that's the motion I would write right there. That it should be vacated on those grounds, is because it was entered merely to avoid an injury and a threat. It was not entered in pursuit of truth or justice or ethic. It was entered because of the coercion, because of a threat of violence. Does that make sense? Because a plea shouldn't be coerced. If somebody had your family held hostage and you entered a plea, doesn't matter. That plea is void because it's not voluntary. And my point is, your plea, because of that threat of violence, isn't voluntary either. And it's certainly not informed because you literally had a question that you wanted answered. And because of the threat of violence, you abandoned that question to secure your safety. And I sound like I'm preaching a little bit, but I'm trying to get you to face something that you just said to me. You know what I mean? I hope I didn't pull something out of you that wasn't true.
No. Everything that I said was true. I was just trying to understand and try to clarify exactly that middle point that we were missing to get to that final point.
I hope I'm not mischaracterizing you, though, because I'm going a notch up. I'm stating more definitively that it wasn't a voluntary plea that was without a threat of violence as the main motivation.
Dude, I was scared shitless standing there. I was like, okay, well, I got a question about this indiscrepancy on the ticket. It's not valid. It's like contradicting itself. It doesn't make sense. I can't find any information, and everyone's asking me to ask my questions today.
No. Just want to plea here.
Well, yeah, I know all of that, but I'm just saying my mindset was that, like that little monologue that I just spewed out, that was my mindset. I'm just trying to find more information, all of this stuff right here. And so, yeah, your characterization was, I was scared shitless and for good reason.
Well, not good. I mean, good to talk about.
Well, yes, good to talk about reason, but the reason behind it was not actually good. I mean, it was a good reason to be that fearful.
Yes, you had good justification, and you're right, because we do know people who go to jail for less, right, than trying to ask that question again. And you personally know, people from here who have gone to jail for, just trying to stand on getting an answer to a question like that. The way that this topic comes up in court is through a motion to fix the error that was a result of the misdeed. So you talk about the misdeed, you talk about the error, and you talk about motioning to void the error so that it can't continue affecting things because of the misdeed. Does that make sense?
Only thing that doesn't make sense is what kind of motion would that be identified as? A motion for...
Motion to strike.
Motion to strike, plea on these grounds.
The title is motion to strike. The things you're striking is the plea and everything that happened as a consequence to it.
I believe in Texas it's called a motion to strike plea. In Oregon, I believe it's called a motion to vacate plea, but it's the same thing.
You can be more specific. You can title it Joe's motion. Whatever. It doesn't matter. It's a title. My favorite motion. It's a title. Title isn't communicating anything. It's the sentences in that motion that matter. Titles are not given any weight. It can be titled correctly, incorrectly. They've actually ruled on this a few times, I remember, where a title was mislabeled and they tried to void it because of that. And it was actually, found that the title, being that it's not an English sentence of any sort and doesn't actually communicate anything but assistance, is like the things that are in brackets. In a motion, you have things in brackets that are just meant to help with interpretation, but not meant to guide interpretation at all. So that's what brackets mean, by the way.